All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Stewart, and I am president at Visual Decisions, and we're here today to talk about reducing cost with the combination of operational excellence and Industry 4.0. At Visual Decisions, we've been in the business of utilizing information from the shop floor to improve continuous improvement since about 2002. Our customers have seen dramatic improvements to throughput, cost, quality, and seen increases such as 30% increase in OEE, decreases such as a 50% decrease in scrap, and more. And we'll talk about how we've achieved some of those savings, as we go through the presentation today. So just as an introduction, for just level setting here, what is Industry 4.0? The really small print graphic on the right side is from the World Economic Forum, where they've defined, what are some of the mainstream, maturing, and emerging technologies that are part of Industry 4.0. And over on the left side, I've highlighted several of those, and I'm going to focus on the ones in the box: advanced analytics, the industrial Internet of Things, machine learning and AI, and augmented reality in today's presentation. But one thing that I should say up front is that the Industry 4.0 technologies are not enough. And I'll pick on the Internet of Things for a moment here. I've been wearing a Fitbit since 2013, so 8 years now. And the Fitbit is great. I'm on my, I don't know, probably 8th Fitbit at this point. And I keep hoping that the next Fitbit I buy is going to be magic and automatically make me lose the weight just by wearing it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So even though it's a great IoT device, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It collects all of the steps that I take. It collects all of the heartbeat, and it's doing that, from raw signals coming from the device itself, pushing that information to the cloud. It has, artificial intelligence that it runs to take those raw signals and turn those into steps and heartbeats and everything else. It presents that information to me in nice, pretty charts and graphs and so forth. But if I don't change my behaviors, if I don't fundamentally do something different tomorrow than I do today, I'm not going to lose any weight. And it's the exact same thing in manufacturing. No matter how many of these wonderful Industry 4.0 tools that we use, we still have to actually change the way that we behave in order to get the value from it on the shop floor. And so, what we focus on at Visual Decisions is really combining the smart factory with the lean factory, and utilizing that combination to drive improvements to cost, quality, throughput, et cetera. And, if we focus on why for a minute, this came from Bain and Company in 2019. And, traditional lean practices work. You can drive a lot of improvements, as you see in the purple there, using those traditional techniques. But if you add the digital on top of that, if you kind of supercharge those lean tools with some of those digital capabilities, then you can see, even much more dramatic savings than you can just with lean alone. The way that we go about that at Visual Decisions is, a very kind of typical process on the left side here. You map out the vision. You want to begin with the end in mind. Going back to Stephen Covey, you want to leverage the existing investments. You're already collecting data from the shop floor. How can we utilize that more effectively to drive change today? And then what are those capability gaps that we see out on the shop floor where you could be collecting additional information, more real time, finer grains of detail, et cetera, that help you, take that much further. And then how do you make sure that you integrate across different processes so that you don't create silos of information, but you actually stitch everything together to create kind of a unified view that your people can use to improve the process. And at every single stage of that evolution, we have to look at how we're going to transform the culture and the processes of the organization to take advantage of those capabilities. And that combination is really what we're going to look at today. So how do we go about combining Lean plus Industry 4.0? Well, one thing to note here is that over the last 20 years, and really throughout manufacturing's history, manufacturing has really embraced technology and automation. Whether you're looking at, laser cutting or, robots or, cobots, utilizing the artificial intelligence on the shop floor and so forth, manufacturing has constantly embraced new technologies in order to improve efficiencies. Where we haven't, had the same level of adoption is really in continuous improvement. And, I still talk to an awful lot of old school Lean practitioners that insist that you have to use the whiteboards, you have to use, the paper methods, that are out there, and that, people will learn, all of this much better if they have to, write everything down by hand and so forth. And I'll talk in a little bit why I don't agree with that point of view. So how do we transform operational excellence? There's a lot of different aspects to it, but I break it out into two parts: a lean management system and then the lean toolkit. And when we look at the lean management system, that includes things like, having an operating system for the business, so to speak, putting visual controls on the shop floor, standard work for leaders, daily accountability processes, doing Gemba and doing it effectively. And the toolkit includes things like root cause analysis, value stream mapping, failure mode and effect analysis, and much more. And so I'm going to pull a couple of examples from each one of those. And I have other webinars where I go much, much deeper into these different subjects. So if you put something into the Q&A or into the chat and let me know that you would like additional details on that, I can definitely point you to some of those recordings, or we could set up a conversation and kind of go through that together one-on-one. If we look at the Kaizen process and how we do Kaizen and how we go about that, there's different ways that this gets structured in different organizations, but this is a very typical 6-step process. And the first step is identifying the problems, then we analyze the current process, then create solutions, test them, measure and analyze the results, and then standardize that across not only that process itself, but any similar processes where we can take advantage of that same change. And if we look at every single one of those different steps, utilizing information from Industry 4.0, we can significantly improve how we do that. And so if we look just at identifying the problems, certainly having data is going to help us better to identify where we should be running Kaizen projects. This was something that has historically kind of driven me a little bit crazy, is that when I talk to so many different companies about how they pick which Kaizen to run next, it's not based on what is the biggest lever that we can pull for the business the most rapidly. It's based on what machine went down last week, or over the last month, what machine has given us the most problems. Or who's complaining all the time, and let's go run a Kaizen there to make him quiet. So instead of doing the squeaky wheel, we should be looking at what dollar impact can we make for the company in what projected amount of time, and where do we have the information to really run that process effectively. And so if we do that, we can do a much better job of step 1, step 2, in terms of analyzing the current process. Obviously, the more data that we have, the better. I don't know how many Kaizens I've been a part of where, we go out there with clipboard and stopwatch, so to speak, and, spend 3-4 weeks analyzing the process. And the problem with that is that if you've got an engineer standing out there at the line, people behave differently. It's the Hawthorne effect. People behave differently when they know they're being watched. People slow down on the road when they see a policeman off to the side. It's the same thing on the shop floor. People behave differently when there's somebody standing there watching the process. And so you're collecting biased data when you do that. So I started getting into this process 15, 20 years ago of implementing systems that collected data 24 hours a day, mainly because of this process of going through these kaizens and how you do root cause analysis and how you gather the data for that. Creating solutions, certainly, if you have all of these Industry 4.0 solutions, your solution space of what you can put in place is much, much bigger. And how you either eliminate or mitigate the issue, being able to do different types of error proofing, being able to respond to things more quickly when they do happen, all of those are possible using these Industry 4.0 solutions. And then being able to test that, maybe simulate it in advance. Certainly being able to measure and analyze those results and standardizing the solution, utilizing some of these systems to ingrain that behavior within the people and detect any deviations from that new process are certainly things that Industry 4.0 is going to be able to help with. And it's the same thing with the root cause analysis frameworks, whether you use something as simple as 5 whys or who, what, when, where, why, how. Breaking all of that down into a Ishikawa diagram, doing graphical evaluation, running an FMEA on the process, or pulling out some of the Six Sigma tools like ANOVAs or design of experiments, or et cetera. Data is going to be at the core of all of that, and certainly having that data and having as rich a data set as possible is going to help make this evaluation as successful as it can be. Digital management operating system. This is something that I've worked on with a number of customers. Down on the left here, we have kind of a traditional Hoshin Connery or policy deployment mapping here. And we start off with the vision, look at the objectives for executive management, turn that into measures, and keep rolling that down, and also back up and you have that catchball process so that you get that alignment in objectives and measurables across the entire organization. And what I've done with some customers is to actually capture this information from the shop floor, which we're capturing the information from the shop floor anyway. So how do we tie that into all of these different measurables that we have, all the way from the operators on the shop floor all the way through the executive management, and be able to very rapidly identify where we have exceptions, where we need attention, be able to tie that into what is actually being done to address these issues on the shop floor and so forth, and be able to have a very quick dashboard. Most companies today do this in Excel, and the companies that I've worked with to do this, we've replaced Excel spreadsheets in I think every single case. And it has become a much more streamlined and much more successful process, because it's not something that you get visibility of once a week or once a month, however often that call happens to do that cadence with the organization. But this is something that the COO of these organizations has been able to pull up on a real-time basis to see for the current date, for the current week, current time period, et cetera, how is the actual operation performing, and what is being done to address the issues and so forth. And so it's been very successful at driving not only that high level alignment for this annual or quarterly process of setting these targets and so forth, but now in real time, seeing what the status is, giving feedback to people about that, and allowing everybody basically their view of what are their measures and how are they performing, and giving them an opportunity to improve and be able to respond to make things better before the end of the period. So I talked about the old school and, being able to, kind of keep the fingerprints on the process, so to speak. And really, when companies, or when, the old school lean people complain about, you have to have people's fingerprints on this, they have to be writing these things down manually and so forth, to really gain a rich understanding of it. I really understand where they're coming from, but I kind of vehemently disagree with their viewpoint. It really comes down to how this is taught, and also what standard work you put in place to support these processes. So if you think about something like a visual control on the shop floor for an hourly production board or something like that. Certainly, if somebody has to walk over to the board, take a marker and write down what they produced in the last hour, what their target was, and for any discrepancy, why did they miss, and so forth. That gets them involved in the process and so forth. But it also creates waste of excess movement and so forth. And it also means that they have to take time away from the process, but they're not going to get any deeper than just writing that up on the board. If we collect that information automatically and display that at the process itself, you have the capability of building things into that process so that they're still actually saying what was the nature of the discrepancy. And you can take that excess time of spending time away from the process to go record that, to now actually do something about that. So what can be done to address that issue that caused the miss on that last hour? And being able to put the standard process around taking action and really driving that next level of accountability is the opportunity here. If you're taking that waste away of just recording everything, that time can be utilized improving the process itself. And so for me, you're getting people even more involved with the process. You're getting them to take more responsibility and accountability, rather than lessening things. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity to really deepen people's understanding of lean and how to do things by switching the focus from just recording data to taking action upon it. So what are the potential impacts to operational and financial performance? Well, at a high level, again, this comes from the World Economic Forum. Industry 4.0 can have tremendous impacts on factory output, productivity, OEE, quality cost, product cost, time to market, et cetera. Double-digit increases across pretty much all of this, and triple digits in some cases. But you still have to, and this is another study from McKinsey that basically says the same thing, that you have, again, just absolutely tremendous opportunities by leveraging these tools in all of these different areas of the business. But to do that, you really have to have that combination of not only the tool itself, but also the process change that takes advantage of those new capabilities. So the way that we organize ourselves around this and working with customers is to start off with what are the high level business goals that we're trying to achieve. And we start to look at, if the goal is to reduce, quality costs, or reduce our cost per piece, or improve throughput, whatever those goals may be. We start by identifying what are the high level things that stand in the way of that performance, and basically now go through kind of a 5 why analysis to say what are the drivers behind that. And once we get down to an actionable level, whether that's true root cause or whether it's just something that we can take action upon, now we can start to identify what are the different enablers that we can put in place that help to directly address those root causes of performance. And then, the critical step here is, what is the process change, or what is the training and, cultural change that has to happen in order to really take advantage of those those enablers to put capabilities for the business in place that are going to either eliminate or mitigate those root causes. And once we identify those changes, process change, et cetera, then we can start to look at, what are the benefits or outcomes that we expect to achieve. And we have, a very formal way of working through this process, and, not only estimating what is the potential benefit, but also creating a plan for what are those enablers that are going to make a significant impact on the root causes for performance. So some of the different operational metrics that we typically target: reducing the total cost of quality, improving throughput, reducing the maintenance or tooling costs, replacing inventory with information, compressing time to market, creating new revenue streams, risk reduction, regulatory compliance. Those are all very typical targets. From a financial perspective, if you look at the income statement or P&L, certainly on the revenue side, there are opportunities to increase revenue, using some of these different capabilities. Simply, if you're in a market where you're capacity constrained, and if you could make more, you could sell more, then increasing your throughput, which we'll talk about next week, is going to lead to increased revenue. But for today's focus, it's more on the expense side. So how can we reduce our material costs, or direct labor, or outsourcing costs, indirect labor, indirect materials, and so forth? And then, how can we make an impact on the balance sheet from an inventory or plant, property, and equipment point of view? So when I look at reducing costs and reducing material costs, there's a number of different ways that we can go about this. Certainly, reducing quality loss is kind of the obvious one. If we can reduce, if it currently takes, making 11 parts to get 10 good ones, if we can improve the quality, then we don't have to buy as much material in the first place. Same thing with overages. If you have a process where, you're a food and beverage company, and you have to have at least 12 ounces in every package, and so you set your target at 12 and a half, so that you'll have at least 12 ounces, so you don't get in trouble for that. Then that 12 and a half is that extra half ounce is overage, it's waste. If we could improve our process so that we could fill it to exactly 12 ounces every single time, we wouldn't have to target 12 and a half. So again, improving the quality, improving the reliability of the performance, reducing the variability are all things that can help us reduce that material cost. Improve vendor quality, and also negotiations for cost down are opportunities to reduce our cost for the same amount of materials, where if we can identify where vendors are giving us poor product and so forth, and we can document all of that, then we can essentially say, here is the entire cost to our organization of your poor quality. So we're going to start basically charging you that back to you unless you can improve your quality that you're shipping to us. Replacement parts for warranty are often sent out and so forth, and so again, opportunity for reducing material costs. Labor costs, again, if you have to build 11 pieces to get 10 good, that takes additional labor. How much time do your people spend waiting? So if your operators are waiting at a process because they're either starved for materials, or they're blocked from shipping things downstream, or if they're waiting for equipment to be repaired, that's just wasted time for your labor. Overtime expenses can be very high. So again, how do we reduce the variability within the manufacturing process in order to address that overtime. And, some of those things that I talked about earlier, being able to do the Kaizens more effectively, being able to do root cause analysis more effectively, implementing standard work across your organization, having consistency in your process and so forth, through the combination of the Industry 4.0 and the lean tools is going to help you reduce that variability and reduce the overtime that you require. Similarly, if you can improve your quality, you can reduce the amount of testing and inspection that you have to do. And so there's a lot of different things that you can do to reduce those labor costs other than just reducing, improving your OEE. There's a lot of different levers to pull. From an outsourcing cost, so if you're outsourcing manufacturing due to capacity reasons, then if you can improve the performance of your organization, certainly you can bring some of that back in and reduce the excess cost that you have on those things as a result. Similarly, if you can have faster changeovers, faster setups, if you are outsourcing product lines so you don't have to do as many changeovers, you can address that by doing SMEDs that are supercharged with some of this Industry 4.0 data and so forth. Indirect labor costs, shop floor personnel, maintenance labor, engineering support, continuous improvement staff. If I didn't have any downtime and I didn't have any quality issues, I wouldn't need any of those people. So anything that I can do to reduce the amount of downtime and quality issues that I have, I can certainly reduce the need I have for this additional support. And again, same thing at the corporate level. The better, more efficient, more consistent, less variable processes that I have, the easier it is for everyone else in the organization to do their jobs. Even something like sales and marketing is impacted by what happens on the shop floor, because if you have poor reputation in the marketplace for either quality or delivery, that makes sales and marketing job harder. They have to work harder in order to get the same sale, which means that you're paying more for your sales and marketing to get the same amount of revenue. So if you can improve your reputation in the marketplace for both quality and delivery, then for the same amount of sales, you can spend less on sales and marketing. Indirect materials costs. If we look at consumables, this is a big opportunity for a lot of companies. I'm working with a customer in the automotive space that does a lot of grinding operations, and they have face a traditional dilemma as far as tooling goes, which is if you take the tool off too late, you make bad parts. So if you leave it on there, the tool gets worn, you're going to make bad parts. If you take the tool off too soon, then you have excess spend on either tooling refurbishment or tooling replacements, and now your costs are too high. And so using some of these Industry 4.0 tools, such as predictive maintenance and predictive quality, we can pull signals directly from the machine, looking at things like the power draw for the motor that turns the grinding wheel, or noise or vibration, or any number of other sensors, and combine that information to be able to predict exactly when is the right time to replace that grinding wheel in order to minimize both the number of bad parts and the amount that we spend on the tooling. And then as far as maintenance spares goes, if we can shift more to a predictive maintenance mode as opposed to reactive or even preventive, that's going to allow us to really optimize what spares we have to keep on hand and the consumption of those spares. From a logistics point of view, again, things that we can do to make things predictable on the shop floor. We don't have to do as much expediting that way, whether it's expediting of inbound materials or expediting of materials out to the customer. If we can make the shop floor more predictable, we can reduce our costs on both of those sides. Certainly from a shipment of replacement parts under warranty, We can reduce our costs there as well as reverse logistics for warranty if we can just produce better parts that don't show up in warranty as much. And then also from a maintenance cost perspective, if we can shift away from reactive maintenance and even improving how much preventive maintenance that we have to do to make sure that the PMs that we do have the impact that we want, and that we're doing exactly what is necessary and sufficient, but no more and no less. If we can shift everything to the predictive maintenance side, then we can certainly impact how much we have to spend on reactive and preventive. And then I think finally, reducing costs from a utilities perspective as well, electricity, gas, water, others, all the things that we've talked about in terms of efficiencies and reducing variance and so forth is going to help us with how much we spend on these different costs as well. So that was it for today. I thank you. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. If you do have them, go ahead and put them in there, or you can reach out to me at tim@visualdecisions.com. There's my phone number, and I look forward to hearing from all of you in the future. Thank you very much.